Ready to get started, Krista?
We are ready.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Neil. I'm the Weldon Long Organization Success Coach. Very excited to have everyone here to dive into a topic that's critical for everyone's success. Don't lose HVAC profits to Black September. 7 steps for sustaining summer profitability.
Yeah, that's right, Neil. Krista here, the Weldon Long Organization COO. Today we have the privilege of learning from one of the foremost authorities in the industry. With his wealth of experience, profound expertise, and unparalleled insights, Weldon has empowered countless business owners to achieve success. Today is all about providing you with actionable strategies to ensure your business not only survives but thrives during the fall. And who better to guide us through this than our esteemed host, Weldon Long?
Weldon is a New York Times best-selling author, a residential HVAC expert, and a successful contracting business owner. His proven strategies have helped countless HVAC businesses maintain strong cash flow, even when the phones stop ringing.
That's correct. Weldon has a wealth of knowledge, and today he's going to share some of his most effective techniques with us. Let's take a look at what you're going to learn. 1, methods to avoid losing your summer profits this fall. 2, strategies to generate customer engagement year-round. 3, tips to optimizing your performance and operational costs, and planning ahead to avoid financial pitfalls this month.
These are crucial topics for any HVAC business owner, especially as we approach the fall. Before I pass things off to the man of the hour, a quick video.
Having authored 15 books and trained over 4 million people in the field of communication and sales, I can honestly say that adopting and accepting the prosperity mindset was critical to help me achieve my goals. And I think Weldon Wally's story about handling adversity, overcoming challenges, and coming out to where he has today is such a vivid, true example of this concept. If you look at Weldon's life, that's exactly what he's done. I just feel honored to share the stage with him, and not only do I consider him a very good friend, but I consider him someone that is going to have a life-changing effect on many people in this world, especially those that'll take what he says seriously and apply it to their life.
Our next guest has an incredible story. Weldon Long is an entrepreneur, a sales expert, and a New York Times best-selling author.
New York Times best-selling author, entrepreneur, and professional speaker. Joining me now, Mr. Weldon Long. How are you, Weldon?
How you doing, Mr. Lopez? Good to meet you, man. Taking steps to make fear actually work for you.
Wally Long hit rock bottom, then he had a moment of clarity, and he chronicles his journey in his new book, The Upside of Fear.
You hear his story, you're going to go, well, gee, my deal ain't so bad. Y'all welcome Weldon Long. Woo! Are you ready? Are you ready to rock your life? You got to dream big. Whenever you think you've got as big as you can get, go bigger. And when somebody tells you you can't do it, don't let them get in your way while you're busy doing it. Everything that you need to do to build a life of success and wealth and prosperity, it's easy. It's just a little bit easier not to.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's easy to make money in the shoulder season. It's just easier not to. Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Neil, for that warm, wonderful introduction. And thank you to everybody tuning in today. You know, when you can make money in the shoulder season in our industry, you pretty much got it made. You know, Ray Charles can see how to make money in the summertime in our business, and summertime for you might be a little bit longer. I'm here in Colorado, and our Our summertime's pretty short. We start getting busy a little bit for some air conditioning season, maybe in June and July, and about the end of August, it starts slowing down pretty good. We get into September like we are now, and typically about the first or second week of September, we get this rainstorm that comes through with a bunch of wind, and the next morning, all the trees are turning, and it's about 65 degrees. So we have a very short season here, but fortunately, that has forced us to learn how to make money in the shoulder season. Our shoulder season tends to be about 9 months around here. So we're going to talk about that today. And, really when you think about making money in the shoulder season, everybody can make money in the summertime. Once you figure that out, you've got the keys to the kingdom. And it's something that's helped our businesses, our several HVAC companies that we have. And we'll be talking about those just a little bit. But once you get that figured out, man, things get a whole lot easier, because there's nothing worse than having that great summertime. And then September rolls around. It might be October. Maybe if you're in Florida or Texas, might be a little bit later in the year, October. But all of a sudden, things slow down. The phones stop ringing, and we start hitting our lines of credit. Sometimes we see it reflected in our accounts payable. We see those starting to grow as we get maybe a few weeks behind on payables and that kind of thing. And it really takes the fun out of life, right? By the time you get to the first of the year, you're kind of holding on for dear life. And, hopefully wherever you are, it gets warm quick and you start getting busy again, and maybe March or April or something like that. But typically you're having to dig out of a hole, right, that you got into in the shoulder season. And as we've learned to stay out of that hole and actually become profitable during the shoulder season, it's made a huge difference. We get into summertime, we're not digging out of a hole. We're just piling on the cash. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I have written several books, and most of what we're going to talk about today is in that ugly yellow book in the middle. It's a New York Times bestseller, but I hate that cover, but the publisher designed it. And we'll also be talking about some stuff from Consistency Selling, which I chose that design, which is much nicer. Didn't have as much influence on the power of consistency. That book was published by one of the big New York publishing companies, and you don't get a lot of say-so unless you're Michael Crichton or something like that. But as you can tell from the video there, I've done a lot of speaking in a lot of different industries. But I will tell you, this is the industry I come from. Everything I know about making money, everything I know about creating wealth, I learned sitting at the kitchen table across from mom and pop homeowner. And so the stuff we're going to talk about today, it's not stuff I think that might work or something I read in the book or something somebody else told me. It's what I've done on all my personal companies and all my client companies. And it works. It's a simple process, and we're going to talk about that today. I want to give you a little background for those of you who may not know. I got in this industry a little over 20 years ago as a comfort advisor in 2003, and I recently came across this my old day planner. For those of you old enough to remember day planners, before everything was digital and electronic, we had day planners, and we used pens and paper and kept track of our stuff. And this was I got my first job in this industry in June, the last week of June of 2003. Got about 1 week of training, and the owner threw me out with some leads. And you can see there, I went out and I'd write down the name of the homeowner and my commission and that thing. If you look down at the bottom there, July 31st, my very first month in this business as a comfort advisor, $149,000 in sales. And the crazy part about that is you look at some of the numbers, if you can see them there, we were doing full systems for $6,500, right? $7,000. Furnaces for $2,200, air conditioners for $37, maybe $3,500. The equivalent of that today would be probably about $400,000. Now think about that. You throw a guy out in this business without knowing anything about the technical side, mechanical side, and just relying on communication skills and relationship building skills, had this kind of success. So I came out of the gate in this industry. I did really well. About a year later, 2004, I opened my own HVAC company, my very first one. And this is a copy of a letter we got about 5 years later in 2009, stating that we were one of Inc. magazine's fastest growing small companies in America. Very excited about that. And that really set me on a journey over the next 12 or 14 years. Actually started before I sold that company, about 2008. Started traveling, consulting, and teaching other companies how we did it, working for the manufacturers, working for a lot of individual contractors, working for distributors, and educating the industry on how we went so fast. We started this company with $0 in 2004 and grew it to total revenue over those 5 years to $20 million. And in 2010, I sold that. By that time, I'd been traveling, teaching, and training. And I did that for a number of years. I spent the next 10 years traveling 200,000 miles a year and just grinding it out there, helping other companies. And then in 2019, and it was very fortuitous, right before COVID started, I decided to get back in the contracting side. I was traveling 200,000 miles a year. I was getting a little bit older. I'm 60 years old now. So in 2019, obviously I was 55, and all that travel is a young man's game, right? During my 40s, it was great. Early 50s, it was great. But you get to a point to where you just want to be home and sleep in your own bed. So I decided to get back in the contracting side. Many of my clients were selling at ridiculous multiples. As you guys know, tons of private equity money flying around these days. And so in 2019, I decided to get back in the contracting side, and I opened a company here in Colorado Springs called Peak Home Performance. And that company is now 5 years old, and I'll share this with you. Our total revenue over those first 60 months, first 5 years, $42.5 million. And that's starting from 0 customers and $0 in revenue. $0 in June of 2019, right? By the end of June 2024, this year, $42.5 million. Now, what I'll tell you is this is not an accident. This is on purpose. And I don't share this with you to impress you. I share it to impress upon you the power of building a business according to a recipe, according to a model. I did it with my first company that I sold in 2010. I did it again here, and I've done it for dozens upon dozens of clients over the last 15 years. Of course, training hundreds of service technicians and comfort advisors, probably thousands, I guess. And the model works, right? The things I'm going to talk to you about today, this is the result of what we're talking about. This is the result of making money all throughout the year. Now, I will tell you this. Many of you may know this already. When I got this job, which changed my life, this industry is extremely generous, extremely great. It changed my life. It's not a sexy industry. It's not glamorous, but my goodness, is it a generous industry where there's just a lot of opportunity. And so when I got this job doing this, when I got that job, I was really excited. The reason I was so excited is because when I got that job, I was living here. This is exactly what it looks like. It's a halfway house here in Colorado Springs, 3808 North Nevada. And I arrived there in January of 2003. And I was still living there when I got that first job in June of 2003. And, you know, when you look at that $149,000 in sales, I also made about $14,000 in commissions. So obviously I was not long for this place. It really, really changed my life. And as bad as this might be to be in a shelter at 39 years old, I was 39 years old, so 21 years ago, it was actually an upgrade for me, because the reason I was there, as many of you may know, if you read any of my books, I had just spent 13 years in federal and state prison, starting from 1987 when I was a 23-year-old punk kid up until 39 years old, that roughly, 87 to 2003, so roughly 16, 17 years. I spent 13 of those years walking prison yards, went to prison at first at 23, got out, went back, got out, and just had a really, really difficult time getting my act together. If you want to know all the gory details, encourage you to go read The Upside of Fear, my first book that I wrote about that whole story. That book was Writer's Digest Best Book of the Year. It was New York Book Festival's Best Autobiography of the Year. It was like kind of a surprise to me. Trust me, I wasn't expecting it to be that successful. But my life looks very different today. Obviously, having written several books and had a lot of success in the writing, the speaking, the training, and the contracting world, my life looks a lot different today. I love this picture. This is the very first prison I was in 1987. And if you could throw a rock from where I'm sitting there in that car over that guard tower, you would hit the cell house I was living in. How many years ago is that? 1987, 88, 30 years ago, 35. I don't even know. It's been so damn long. But I love this picture because the juxtaposition of my life today and where I came from. My wife and I were down in Canyon City, Colorado, which is where this is taken, just about an hour south of where I live now. And we're down there tooling around in one of the cars, and she wanted to get this picture. She actually wanted me on that road up there by the wall, but I was pretty sure they would shoot me or come out there and arrest my dumb ass for getting too close. So I stayed out in the public street. She snapped this picture. I got her in the car real quick, and we sped away, and nobody got hurt. Nobody went to jail, so I was pretty excited. But I love that picture just because it really does represent the before and after, right? Again, 13 years in places like this, and my life today is an extraordinary life. I don't just mean financially. That part's been great, but the family, the life, the happiness, the health, the wealth, all those things, right? So to do that, we had to learn how to do a few things, right? So, the question is, how do you thrive in the shoulder season? It's great that I did it, right? Why should you care? Well, because if I can show you how I did it and you can do it too, that'd be a good thing, right? And I want to share this with you. This next slide here, I actually just ran this morning. This is my September. So what is today? The 16th or 15th, something like that. So this is my month to date, halfway through the month of September. You can see there in the far right, in the month of September, our total sales for the month, $836,000. So we're tracking for about $1.6, $1.7 million. That's in September. And I'm telling you, out there right now, it's sunshine, blue skies, and 65 degrees. Beautiful weather this time of year in Colorado. They call it the Indian summer, September, October, into November sometimes. And it's the best weather we have all year, right? Unless you're in our business. If you're in the HVAC business, it sucks because it's perfect weather. There's no rain, there's no wind, there's no storms. It's perfect 65, 70 degrees. And this is what we're doing this month. So how do you do that? That's what I want to talk about today. How do you duplicate this success? Because it isn't difficult. In fact, as I said, it's easy. The problem is it's just a little bit easier not to. It's what I call the conundrum of human nature. Knowing what to do, knowing what you want, and then not doing it, right? So let's talk about what you got to do. And the first step is you got to get everybody's mind right in your company. It's funny because this, to me, is the most important thing. It's always the first thing I do, whether I'm working in one of my companies. By the way, I own 3 other HVAC companies in a partnership with some other wonderful people around the country. We have a company in Florida. We have one in Texas. We have another one here in Colorado. And when I go into an organization, my company or a client company, the first thing we do is we have to change the mindset. And here's what I mean by that. In our industry, to be really successful, you have to have a very healthy and a very positive culture around sales. And yet the sales function in our industry is usually kind of looked down upon, right? Nobody wants to be the sales guy. In fact, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years, training and teaching people in this industry. And if I walk into a room, whether it's 1,000 or 10 people, and I say, what's the first word that comes to mind? When I say the word salesman, about 2 out of 3 people have a negative word come to mind, right? Pushy, high pressure, snake oil, whatever the case, right? And yet we all depend on selling to make a living, right? Whatever you do in your HVAC company, nobody gets paid until something gets sold. And by the way, nothing gets sold till somebody sets a damn sales lead, right? We'll talk about that here in just a minute as well. But my point is you got to build a healthy culture around sales. If fundamentally we look at sales as something to look down upon, then how are we really going to get good at it, right? Now, I talked about these books briefly. I want to talk to you about that middle one there, the one with the really ugly cover. That is a putrid yellow cover. I mean, my God, what were they thinking, right? Nonetheless, New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, I must say. But let's talk about the mindset. When I talk about the mindset, I want you to imagine right here, I got a box. And in that box is everything I need to build a beautiful motorcycle, all the parts, all the components, and piece by piece, component by component, I start removing the parts of the motorcycle and I put it together. I build it, right? At some point I look in the box is empty, and I've successfully assembled all the parts and built this beautiful mechanical creation that we call a motorcycle, right? Well, what are the odds that when I look at this beautiful thing that I built, this motorcycle, that I realize that instead of building a motorcycle out of the motorcycle parts, I inadvertently, accidentally baked a cake. Well, you can't bake a cake out of motorcycle parts, can you? Right? If it's a motorcycle in the box, it's a motorcycle outside the box. Well, folks, that box is a metaphor for your mind. And your life, the components of your life are already in there. The components of your business are already in there. Your wealth, your financial security, your relationships, your health, everything about your life is already in here. And what happens, just like you remove the components of that motorcycle, we start removing the components of our life every time we make a decision, every time we make a choice. Neuroscientists estimate that we make 30,000 individual choices every single day, right? I mean, most of it happens at the subconscious level, of course. You're not consciously thinking about 30,000 decisions a day, but, you know, I got to make a decision. Do I say this or do I say that? Do I run this service call like this, or do I drop off a bid? Do I run this sales call the way I should, or do I hope they call me back? Right? We make these decisions about food, about relationships, about what we say to people, everything 30,000 times a day. And every time we make a decision, every time we make a choice, we pull out a little piece of our lives, right? So you got to think about this. You go through your life, you're making 30,000 decisions a day. At some point, it's the end of the line, right? Nobody gets out of this deal alive. And when you look back on your life, you're going to find that your life is a perfect reflection of whatever is in that box. If it's a life of wealth and success and prosperity and happiness, that's what you're going to pull out. On the other hand, if it's a life of negativity and anger and resentment and jealousy and poverty, that's what you're going to pull out. You can only pull out of the box that which is in the box, just like the motorcycle. So the question becomes, what's in your box, right? What's in your box about sales? I'll give you a perfect example. What's in your box? What's in the box of your service techs and your salespeople about price? Do most of them think that the homeowner just wants a cheap price? Because if that's in your box, think about what you're going to pull out. You're going to pull out cheap systems, right? So fundamentally, culturally, we have to change our core beliefs about sales, about price, about customer value. We have to build a sales culture in our organization. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that sales is the most important thing or the only important thing. I'm saying that sales is just as important as the quality of your installations, as the quality of your service calls, as the quality of your people in your call center. All those things are important, but sales is just as important. Yet we look down in sales in our industry, right? I'll give you an example. Suppose it's the hottest day of the year. You got 100 service calls that you got to run. Is there ever a moment, no matter how backed up you get, that you go into your accounting department and ask one of your payables or receivables clerks to go out and run some service calls for you? Hell no, right? Because they don't know how to do it. But when it comes to sales, we'll grab any human being with a pulse and a heartbeat and, hey, you're the sales guy, right? With no training, maybe no disposition towards sales. Maybe they think salespeople are crooks and pushy and high pressure. How the hell are they going to be good at sales if fundamentally we have these limiting beliefs about sales? How are we going to go out there and sell at healthy margins? If our fundamental belief is people just want a cheap price? We have to change the mindset around the sales culture in our business. Now, the question becomes how to do that. Well, again, success is not a knowledge problem. It's an implementation problem, because you can go online, you can buy an audio version of my book, The Power of Consistency, I think for 99 cents, and the whole program is in there. The whole program on how to change the mindset in your company, in your life, is in that book, right? You can become an expert on anything these days on YouTube. I've got 100 videos on there, probably 500 videos where I talk about the mindset. So the information is out there. You just have to make the decision. You have to sit back and say, okay, what is the culture around sales in my company? Do my installers hate my salespeople, right? Do we all look at the salespeople as just high pressure or lazy or whatever, like they don't know how to do a drawing, they can't remember to take a picture? You got to change the culture around sales in your company if you want to be successful during the shoulder season. Listen, anybody can sell during the summer. My gosh, it's 98 degrees, it's 100 degrees, depending where you are, it might be over 100 degrees. Anybody can sell. I can teach a monkey to drop off bids in the summer and close at least a third of them. I mean, think about it. How many bids does the average homeowner get? 3. How many do they choose? 1. That says the basic probability is if I'm one of those 3, I got a 1 in 3 chance of being chosen, right? So it ain't nothing to sell anything during the summertime. It's the other 8 or 9 months of the year, right? This is where we have to examine our core beliefs about sales, right? So that's step 1. You got to change the culture. Step number 2, if you want to be successful in the shoulder season, you have to learn how to outbound like a boss, and you have to create promotions to sell systems, right? Gary Ellis is the king of this and creating promotions, and I like to think I'm the king of outbounding, right? What I mean by this, in my company, for example, our call center folks, they have to make 50 outbound calls a day when it's slow, or until they set 5 maintenance calls, because it all starts with the maintenance calls, right? In my company, our average revenue, I kid you not, our average revenue on a maintenance call is over $1,000 when you average in the tech turn sale revenue, right? So we're going to go out there and sell some systems on every 10, every 12 maintenance calls. We're going to find an opportunity. We're going to sell that. And if you average it out, over $1,000, right? Now, all I got to do is keep maintenance calls coming. My company here in Colorado Springs, for example, it's a 5-year-old company, right? It's a fairly new company. We don't have a ton of maintenance. We have less than 1,000 maintenance agreements, but we have a database with 10,000 people in it. They don't have to be a maintenance customer. We start calling everybody we can. And hey, it's time for your preseason tune-up, right? You got to get that safety check. You got to get that efficiency check. And so we go out there and we're setting those. Right now, I get a report each day, and we're setting around 30 to 40 maintenance calls every single day. That's all I need to keep everything else going. Because once you get this step, right, you got to outbound like a boss. You got to create promotions. By the way, we have several scripts. If you shoot me an email to info@weldonlong.com, Krista will be happy to send these to you. So our free little gift. These are outbound scripts for all different situations. And by the way, I will tell you this. I was down at my company in Texas just yesterday, down just outside of Houston. And the call center folks, the gal that was in charge of that, she really wasn't, she's like, I don't know if I have time to outbound. I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. We bring in a temp service. You go to a local temp service in your town, and you tell them you just want somebody with outbound telemarketing experience and customer service experience, and you put that script in front of them. Remember, you're going to get voicemails on almost every call, and you have them sit there and outbound for 2 or 3 hours. They'll call 200 or 300 people, leave 200 or 300 voicemails. If you leave the right voicemails with the right promotions, which is why the promotions are important, that's going to spur a lot of inbound calls back to your call center, booking the maintenance calls. That's where it all starts. Number one, you change the culture around sales. Number two, you start outbounding like a mad dog, right? You can buy lists, right? There's a lot of lists that are people are not on the no-call list. You can outbound as much as you want to. You know, people tell me sometimes, man, our phones aren't ringing. I don't give a rip. Make somebody else's phone ring. Pick up the damn phone and outbound. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I just came out of a management meeting and we're offering this amazing special on your 52-point checkup and safety efficiency check. We got to get this thing done. It's like changing the oil in your cars. Give me a call back today. There's a limited number of slots available. You leave that message 50 times and I bet you 5 people call back in. So if I get a temp person to come in, the temp person's perfect because they can just come in 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 days a week. Won't cost you that much. Just all they got to do is leave voicemails. If they do get someone on the phone, they can toss it over to your call center. This person doesn't have to know anything. They just read a couple of paragraphs a couple of 100 times over 2 hours and then send them home for the day. If you don't like them, you tell the temp agency to send somebody else. If you don't need them next day, because now all of a sudden you're busy, tell them to come back next Monday. You can control the number of maintenance calls that you're setting, but you got to start with the outbounding. You got to have those scripts, right? Number 3, you've got to set quality residential leads and service calls. It is not enough to get someone on the phone and to say, we'll have somebody out there at 2:00 on Tuesday. When I talk about setting a quality residential sales lead, I'm talking about qualifying and building a relationship and setting that lead properly to give my comfort advisor the best opportunity to convert, right? We got to get both homeowners present. We have to confirm time, right? If you want, email me, email Krista. I'll give you the script for that as well, right? None of this stuff's a secret. I got no secrets, right? I'm all about execution. Everything I'm telling you today, you already know. So far, have you been surprised? Hell no. What I do is get it done. When I go to a client's company, they know what I'm going to do. The difference is I get the shit done, right? That's what I do. So we got to set quality sales leads and quality service calls. What's a quality service call? Well, the homeowner needs to know what to expect, right? We got to confirm the time. We have to let them know what to expect. And by the way, the last thing that your CSR should be saying to a homeowner before they hang up is, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, when the technician comes out, be sure and ask them about your discounts that I see you're available for you. And they're going to say, what discounts? What discounts? Talk to your technician when they come out. Now, all of a sudden, your technician walks in the house. What's the homeowner say? Hey, what about my discount? Oh, that's part of our Comfort Club membership, right? So all of a sudden, now they're talking about your club membership, your maintenance program, and the homeowner starts the conversation. You can make this happen simply by every time a CSR books a call to say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, be sure and ask about the discounts that I see you're eligible for. They're going to say, what discounts? Just talk to your technician. Now, all of a sudden, you're having a conversation about the maintenance program on every single call because homeowners are going to ask about their discounts, right? So we got to set quality sales leads and quality service calls. Don't just send people out at random. We'll be out there at 2:00. Have a plan. There's a plan for setting a lead. There's a plan for setting a service call. And then, by the way, you want these scripts? We'll send them to you. Just shoot us an email. Step 4, set quality tech turn leads from your service department. Listen, I've been selling in this industry at the kitchen table across from mom and pop homeowner for over 20 years, and I'm pretty dang good at it. But I will tell you this, I can't count the times, not in my company so much, but because I won't let this shit happen. But in my client companies, I'll go out on a training sales call, training salespeople, comfort advisors, and we go out on a so-called tech turn lead, and the homeowner says something like, you know, I'm not even sure why you're here. The technician said I should just get a price. You ever have that happen? It's because we're not setting quality tech turn leads. All leads are not the same. So we have to teach our people how to set quality tech turn leads. The key to that thing is very simple. Number one, you have to go beyond the basic problem with the system. You have to remember, you got to teach your people, homeowners are going to call you when they have a problem that's bothering them with their system. No heat, no cool, making noise, won't start up, whatever. They're going to call you about that one problem, right? But how often are there other problems in that house? With the system, with the airflow, with the indoor air quality, whatever the case may be, there's probably a half a dozen other calls. And the mistake that so many of our comfort advisors, service technicians make, they go in, they find the first problem that they come to, and they go to the homeowner and say, hey, maybe you should look at a new system, right? That is not a quality tech turn lead. You got to find that problem. And then you got to find the next one and the next one. By the time you have that conversation with the homeowner, you need to have 4 or 5 problems that you've discovered. Listen, the reality is that you get paid in this business based on the number of problems that you solve for people, but you can only solve problems if you find them. If you don't find the damn problems, how are you going to recommend solutions? It's kind of like this. Imagine you go to the doctor, you got a problem with your shoulder, and you go see the shoulder doctor. And the shoulder doctor takes an x-ray, gives you a shot, cortisone in the shoulder. Next thing you know, good as new. You feel like you're 16 again, right? And you walk out of the doctor's office. The next day, you have a massive heart attack, damn near kills you. Serious heart attack, puts you in the intensive care unit. Your family doesn't know if you're going to live. You don't know if you're going to live. You're not working. You're not making money. Bills are piling up, all kind of stress, right? World's going crazy. This heart attack is, you don't know how much heart muscle damage you've done. You don't know if you're going to make it out of the hospital. Serious, serious situation, right? Well, after a couple of weeks in the intensive care unit, you're talking to your cardiologist one day, and the cardiologist says, yeah, you know, man, it's too bad we didn't see this heart attack coming. Because if we had known it was coming, I could have given you this little clot buster pill right here, and it would have busted up that clot in your heart. You never would have had this heart attack, and, you know, just would have avoided all this heart damage. I was going to say brain damage, but it's heart damage, right? And you say, yeah, doc, but I never saw this thing coming. I just, all of a sudden, bam, knocked me down like a truck hit me. Well, another week after that, you're in your ICU bed, and you're sitting there, and you're all hooked up on monitors and tubes and whatnot. And you see the shoulder doctor walk past you, past the hospital room door. And you say, hey, shoulder doc. And he stops and looks back at you and says, my gosh, what the hell happened to you? And you say, doc, it's the craziest thing. The day after you fixed my shoulder, I had a massive heart attack. Damn near killed me. I've been here 3 weeks. And the shoulder doctor looks at you and says, well, I got to tell you, I'm not the least bit surprised. I thought you were going to have a heart attack the day you were in my office to fix your shoulder. And you say, what? You knew I was fixing to have a heart attack? And he says, man, a first-year medical student could see you were fixing to have a heart attack. Your blood pressure was through the roof. Your heart rate was through the roof. Your heart was arrhythmic. To be honest with you, I was surprised you made it out of my office and back to your car. And you say, doc, what the hell? If you knew I was fixing to have a heart attack, why didn't you tell me? And the shoulder doctor looks at you and says, hey, you came to see me about your shoulder. How would you feel about your shoulder, doc? Not very good, not much confidence, right? Because we have an expectation that if I go see a doctor about a shoulder problem, but he sees I'm fixing to have a heart attack, hey, would you tell me about it? Let me know. But how many times do our service technicians walk in the house and they treat the shoulder problem and ignore the heart attack with the indoor air quality, ignore the heart attack with the efficiency, ignore the heart attack with the airflow, ignore all the heart attacks, right? And all proud, I fixed the shoulder problem. Who gives a rip if you ignore the heart attacks? What we have to do is we got to walk in that house, and our job is to look for every problem we can solve. Well, we have to look for every situation, not just the shoulder problems. We got to look for the heart attacks. When you find the heart attacks and you share that information with the homeowner, guess what? That sets a much higher quality tech turn lead, doesn't it? Because now they've got multiple problems that they're aware of. Our job is to go in, find the problems that we can solve, and inform the homeowner. They will make the right decision for themselves. If they don't give a rip, that's okay. At least you did your job, right? So the reality is we have to get in the habit of going beyond the scope of the minor repair and look for all the problems. I'm going to tell you another little technique. Here's a little pro tip. Not going to charge you a dime for this. Stop and think about this, right? If you're in a room right now with other people, like 2 people, each take your palm like this, right? And you got palm to palm. And then I want one of you to start pushing. The other person doesn't do anything. You start pushing. And I guarantee you, when you start pushing, the other person will automatically start pushing back. They always do. It's human nature. When people push us, we push back. Well, guess what? I got to tell you something. How often do you walk on a call these days after 30 years of people, trying to tech turn leads, and the homeowner says, just fix the damn system. Don't try to sell me anything, because people have been pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. You know what you do? You take it away. When we start a tech turn conversation, you know how we start it? We say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I'm pretty sure the last thing that you were planning on doing today is replacing this old system, right? You don't plan on replacing it now, do you? And 100 times out of 100, they'll say, well, no, we weren't planning on doing that at all. And then you say, well, let me ask you this. Given the fact it is 17 years old, do you think you might replace it in the next 5 years? Oh, yeah, next 5 years, we're going to, because they feel no pressure. 5 years, a long time horizon. Then you simply say, well, since you've already decided to replace it in 5 years, let's take a look at the cost to keep this thing over the next 5 years. Then you go through future repairs, you go through inflation, you go through utility overpayment, and next thing you know, you got $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stuff there in utility overpayment, future repairs, and inflation. And then you say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, let me ask you a question. What's the worst part about that? Well, I don't know. Well, I can tell you the worst part. You're going to put $5,000 in this system, and guess what? You're still going to have the old system. Right? So does it make sense, since you're going to replace this thing in 5 years anyway, you've already decided, does it make sense to put that $5,000 into a new system, or should I just get started with today's repairs? Well, how much is a new system? Bam. Right? That's a great question. We have specially trained comfort advisors. Let me get one of them out here and have that conversation. But you got to take it away first. Don't push. You got to back away, right? You got to take away. You got to back away. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I'm sure the last thing you're thinking about today is replacing this whole system, right? Get them to agree with you, and then you got them. Okay. That's a quality sales lead. You combine that with finding 4 or 5 problems, the heart attacks. Now you got a quality sales lead when your comfort advisor gets out there. Got a few more techniques I don't have time to get into today, but there's ways that we can make those leads better, right? By the way, we teach a three-step process, basically what I just overviewed you. You can find tons of stuff on YouTube of training I've done on this. It's not a big secret, right? We outline all the conversations. We script it for our guys and for our client guys. Step number 5. You have to have a sales system. You can't just randomly walk in the house and drop off bids and expect to build a company like mine, right? You can build a company, but it's not going to be a great company. It's not going to be a company driven by a sales culture. Here's why it's important to have a sales system, right? This will come as no great shock to you, by the way. Consistent sales results come from consistent sales activities. Random sales results come from random sales activities. It ain't rocket science. The key is you have to have a process, a system that duplicates your success. And by the way, like in my company, we have the system. We hire a new person. I can put a new person from hiring out of the industry. My last 4 comfort advisors we've hired, 3 of them came from the car industry. 1 was a waiter in a restaurant. They know how to do a load calcs and combustion air. They can measure airflow and make sure there's enough. That's all they need to know. You don't have to be a computer programmer to sell a computer. You don't have to be a technician to sell one of our systems, right? We can teach them in a month. I've had it happen as quick as 2 weeks that I'll bring a person in, teach them how to do a load calc, some basic stuff, teach them our sales system. They're out there selling on a consistent basis. I've got guys, this restaurant guy, 150 grand this first 2 or 3 months, each month. Right now, that's not a top producer. Our top producer is cranking out 400,000 or 500,000 a month. But if I can get a guy selling 150,000, 200,000 a month out of the gate, by next year he's going to be at $300,000 or $400,000 a month, right? But you got to have a system to do that. You can't just come in and randomly tell people like, well, go talk to some customers. You got to sit them down and you got to put them on a conveyor belt. That's what my sales system is. It's a freaking conveyor belt. All of this whole system is what I put into place in my companies and my client companies, right? The whole system, the outbounding, the service tech training, the sales training, all of it. When I say a sales system, obviously based on this book, The Consistency Selling Method, which I wrote, Amazon #1 bestseller, it's based on something I call the sales hallway, right? The sales hallway is you and your homeowners down there at the bottom of that hallway, and you got to walk them down that hallway, right? And as you walk them down that hallway, they're going to have lots of questions for you. Most importantly, they're going to have questions about the price because they think that's the most important thing. And then when they get the price, they want to do the most natural thing on the planet, which is to escape the hallway out of one of those doors on the side. They don't want to go to that door on the end where the money is. They want to postpone the buying decision. And so what do they say to get out of those doors? Well, you deal with it every day. You're too expensive. I need a cheaper price. I need to think about it. I need 3 bids. And next thing you know, boom, they're out of the hallway and we're saying, okay, well, give me a call next week. You know, whatever kind of weak ass BS that people say. The key is you have to walk down that hallway proactively and address every one of those objections before the homeowner ever brings it up. And we close that door and we nail it shut. Now, that's not to say that sometimes the homeowner won't try to sneak back down the hallway and sneak out of one of those doors, but we make it tough for them, right? It's not going to work 100% of the time, but think about this. If you're currently closing 3 or maybe 3.5 or 4 out of 10, that means you're losing 6 or 7 out of 10. What I will teach you is how to get 1 or 2 of the 6 or 7 you're losing. You already know how to get the 3 or the 4. I don't have to teach you that. I got to teach you how to get 2 of the 5 or 6 or 7 you're losing. Very easy to do, actually. All you got to do is to close those doors, right? You can read my book, Consistency Selling. The entire system is in there. I think that book is $19 on hardcover. I think the audio version is $2.99 or something crazy. I don't know. Everything's in there. It's not a knowledge problem, folks. It's an implementation problem. The information is out there. You just have to do it. And I know the reason you don't. You're overwhelmed. You're busy, right? It never gets done. Right? Sometimes you need a coach to help do it for you. That's what we do. And then we have a sales presentation book. This is what we build for my companies. We build it for our client companies. An actual presentation based on your business, you know, branded your company. And we take them through the entire process, page by page by page. And we have a conversation. We close those doors. This is the one for my company. It's the same exact book. These are some of the interior pages, but it's all very simple and straightforward. You have to have a presentation system. Why? Because the system delivers consistent results. Random activities produce random results. Consistent activities produce consistent results, right? That's what I'm trying to establish. That's why we maintain revenue per lead pretty much the same year round. Obviously, some months we're running more leads than others. We're not running as many leads in November as we do in July, but the amount of productivity, the revenue per lead stays about the same, and that's really, really important. Here's what else is important. This is something, you can take a screenshot of this. This is an old school price card. Now, I'm going to tell you why I use this. If you get to the end of your presentation, you've been there for an hour and a half, you built this great relationship, you know, homeowner loves you, there's this connection, and then what do? We turn and we start trying to build 4 or 5 systems, right? And during the 10 or 15 minutes it takes, we completely lose the dynamic. Mom's helping the kids with homework, dad's out in the garage smoking a cigar. Next thing you know, we're trying to herd them all back together, and what do they say? Just email it to me, right? The kiss of death. If you email bids, we cannot be friends. We can't golf. We can't drink beer. We can't smoke cigars. We can't do anything together if you email bids, right? You cannot email bids. So what do? I know all the technology is great. High tech, high tech, high tech. This is where I want high touch. I want to maintain that connection with my homeowner. So what this is this is an 8.5 by 14 laminated card with 7 systems on it, right? And think about like a Denny's menu. That's what this looks like. And when I get done with my trial close, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, any reason other than price, you wouldn't trust my company with this project. And they say, of course not. If we can afford you, we love you. I pull this out, bam. This is for a 3-ton unit, I think. And there's my 7 systems, right? Now on the front side of this, you can see there's just the monthly payments. I do this because I don't want my homeowner getting all distracted with the numbers yet, right? I want to go through all the features and benefits of all my systems. Then I flip it over. And when I flip it over, there you have your retail prices. Okay. And then we start going through our closing sequence. People ask me, why do you have 7 systems? Let me tell you something. Number one, I have 7 systems because it works. And it also helps me leverage something called the concession principle. The concession principle says that if I come to you and I ask you for $5, there's probably about a 15 to 20% chance you'll say yes. But if I come to you and I ask you for $20 first and you say no, and then I ask you for $5, according to the research, you become 2 to 3 times more likely to say yes, right? There was this very famous study done by Robert Cialdini, brilliant man, and they take 100 college students, and they go to the college students, and they add 100 kids, and they say, would you be willing to take a group of juvenile delinquents to the zoo for a day? And out of the 100 kids, only 17 said yes. 83%, 83 kids said, hell no, right? No way. Then they went to another group of 100 college kids and asked the same question, but they asked another question first. The first question they asked the second group is, would you be willing to mentor a group of juvenile delinquents for 2 hours a week for 2 years? And 100 out of 100 said, no way, I don't have time for that. And then they said, well, would you be willing to take them to the zoo for a day? And 50% of the kids said yes. 17% on the first example, 50%, 3 times as many on the next ask, right? This is because people become more likely when there's a concession request. So when I show them my Stanley system for $25,000, and by the way, that's just the basic system, doesn't include ductwork or IQ, electrical, or anything else, I halfway expect them to say no. I don't get upset when they say no. I know they're going to say no usually on the first ask, right? But then I'm going to my Penrose, and they're probably going to say no to that. But then research says they become way more likely to say yes to my Broadmoor or my Colorado. By the way, I love to name our systems around local landmarks, right? We've had such creative stuff. We've had clients in South Louisiana name them after different dishes, the etouffee, you know, the crawfish pie, the whatever, right? People in California name them after beaches. What you want it to seem local, right? You want it to seem local around your area. But the more they say no to the high-end stuff, the more likely they become to say yes. This is why we have to ask for the order 2 to 3 to 4 times. Now, you can't keep badgering them and asking for the same thing. You got to come down and say, okay, because if I just say, can you do it? Can you do it? And just keep asking for the same thing, they're going to get frustrated. They're going to get annoyed. But if I say, how about the Stanley? Nope. How about the Penrose? Nope. How about the Broadmoor? I don't know. How about the Colorado? Yes, let's do it. You want them to say no a few times. People get so freaked out on no. You want them to say no a couple of times. It's just the way it's done. But you got to have these cars. Now, for our clients, we design all these. We do all your pricing for you to make sure you're not giving shit away, right? We got to sell at proper margins. We design the entire price card system. We design the entire presentation. We put it together for you. We do everything. We implement the entire system from the outbounding strategy to training the service techs to training the salespeople. But you don't need me to do it. You can read my books. You can go on YouTube and figure it out yourself if you want to. Now, something else you got to understand. In business, you probably heard this saying before, what gets measured gets done. You have to track your sales productivity. We use a measurement we call revenue per lead. Revenue per lead is the gas mileage that I get on my leads, right? If you think about gas mileage in your car, your miles per gallon. If I tell you I can go from here to Colorado to California on 1 tank of gas, to know if that's good gas mileage or not, you got to know how many gallons I'm burning, and you got to know how many miles it is. And you can do the math and figure out what my miles per gallon is. Well, on leads, we call that revenue per lead. You can tell me you did $3 million last year. What I want to know is how many gallons of leads did you burn to get that, right? Because if you burn 2,000 leads, I'm not impressed. But if you did it on 500 leads, right, that means your revenue per lead was much higher. That's the measurement that you have to track. Revenue per lead. It's not average ticket. It's not close rate. It's revenue. What if I give you 10 leads and you bring back 50,000 in revenue, might be on 2 systems, might be on 3 systems, but you bring back 50,000 in revenue on 10 leads, that's $5,000 revenue per lead. That's the minimum that you should accept in your company. Again, I'm not talking average ticket. Our average ticket's about $15,000. But the minimum revenue per lead in my company, if you want to keep your job, is 5,000. I have, most of our guys are 6,000 and 7,000, but the minimum that we'll accept is 5,000, right? So you got to track that. The question is, how do you track it? Well, I will tell you this. This is part of a company I'm involved in, Breezy software, and this will track your sales performance for you, right? I don't have time to get into this today, so we just put this up here. Krista put this up for me. Would you like to learn how Breezy, it's a super inexpensive CRM, right? It's fantastic. It's a fraction of the price of so many other programs out there. If you would like to have somebody reach out to you and talk to you about this, about how you can keep track of your revenue per lead, just go ahead, and looks like we got a bunch of hell yeses. That's nice. So we will follow up on that if you, if you want to do that. By the way, there's the website. You probably won't be able to see it until, actually you can move that little screen right there. I just realized, Krista, I was able to move the screen. If you go to getbreezyapp.com, you can get information. You can click on this and we'll have somebody follow up with you and make sure we put you in touch with the right folks over there. But you have to measure your sales productivity. I remember one time I was talking to a client about revenue per lead. He's like, yeah, my revenue per lead is so-and-so. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? He goes, well, I know how much we sold last year. I said, well, how many leads do you run? He goes, well, we ran so-and-so number of leads. I said, well, how do you know that? He's like, man, I've been doing this a long time. I know how many leads we run. And I kept pressing him on it. Finally, he said, well, if you really want to know, you can go count them in that box, right? So they had a cardboard box, and when they would set a lead, they would take 2 copies. One would go in that box, one would go to the sales, the comfort advisor, right? But I went through and counted the leads in that box. You know what I discovered? there were twice as many leads in that box as he thought, which meant his revenue per lead was half of what he thought. You have to track every single lead. You have to treat your leads like your children. You got to know who's running around with them. You got to know what time they're out there doing. They got to know who they're doing it with, what they're doing. You got to keep track of your leads like you keep track of your kids. So with that, we'll have somebody follow up with you and talk to you about that. The last step here I want to talk about, it is the essence of consistency itself. And Krista, I don't know if you can get rid of that thing on my screen, but it's stuck there on my screen.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I
that is the craziest thing.
Discontinued it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll just have it on my screen. I get to see how many people of you want to talk to Breezy. So consistency. I've written 3 books. 2 of them have the word consistency in the title, right? So consistency is the key. You got to talk to your guys every single day. So here's what I do. In my company, I deliver training every single day to my guys through the phone. This is where the technology is good, right? So every Monday, I do a 20 to 30 minute skills development coaching meeting, right? And then every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we do a 3 to 5 minute coaching video that goes to everybody's phone. By the way, all my clients get it too. I'm going to show you here in a minute. You can actually get a couple of weeks of it for free. But every single day, you got to remind folks to build a relationship, ask for the order. I want to show you a quick example of what one of those daily videos looks like. Hey everybody, Weldon Long here. Here's something to think about. I want to talk about today the single most important thing you can do in sales to be effective. The single most important thing. Now listen, I've been writing books in sales and training in sales for over 20 years, and there's a lot of things that you got to do to get really, really good, to be a top performer. But the reality is there is one simple thing that you can do, no matter how inexperienced you are, no matter how new you are, no matter how much you don't maybe understand heating and air conditioning. A lot of my sales guys came from out of the industry. And even though they don't know a lot about the industry, doing this one little thing can make a huge difference in terms of their sales performance. And that little thing is ask for the damn order. There's nothing that you can do in sales to make you successful more quickly than asking for the sale. Because the reality is, studies have shown that well over 90% of all sales calls in our industry end without the service technician or the comfort advisor asking for the order formally. Oh, they may hint around about it like, hey, Mr. Homeowner, if you want to do one of these, we could do it next week. And the homeowner says, okay, well, let me call you back next Tuesday. And you say, here's my card. I'll talk to you next week, which of course you're never going to, right? You got to get in the habit of asking directly for the business. Why? Because the answer is always no until you ask. So no matter what happens on the call, no matter how poorly you think it went, no matter what the situation is, when you get to the end, you have to make a specific request. So Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, that seems like a good system. With your permission, can I start the paperwork? Or with your permission, can I get you an install date? Or will you trust me with this installation? You have to make a specific request. I mean, listen, you got to understand that you invest a lot of time in a service call and a sales call, and until you sell something, you're an unpaid consultant. You're a brilliant conversationalist. We get paid for what happens in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a call, and that is when the homeowner decides to buy from us. But you have to ask, because they're not going to be jumping through hoops to give you a bunch of money, right? Especially if it's no heat or no cool. In that kind of situation, maybe there's some urgency. But in most of the cases, people have heating and air, and they're making a decision to buy maybe a newer, better quality, higher efficiency system. But you have to ask, because if you just leave it up to, fate, the twisted winds of fate, they're probably going to say, well, let me think about it and give me a card. I'll call you back later. So get in the habit of asking. And by the way, you might have to ask a couple of times. Studies have shown that people typically have to be asked 3 times or more before they say yes. So how do you ask a couple of times without being pushy? Well, we just talked about the first way, right? So you look at some options and you say, Mr. Homeowner, that seems like a great option for you. With your permission, can I start the paperwork? That's the first ask, right? They might say, no, we got to think about it. Then just change the subject, right? If they're not going in the direction you wanted to go, point them in a different direction. Say, by the way, I noticed that motorcycle out in your garage. How long have you been riding motorcycles, right? Just get them talking about something else. And then at any point in the conversation, simply say, by the way, Mr. Homeowner, do you feel like my company would do a great job on the installation? They're going to say, oh, sure. Well, great. Let's get the paperwork started, right? You just get them to agree with anything and you say, oh, well, great. Let's go ahead and do the paperwork. Right, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, do you think my company would stand behind any warranties or guarantees that we have if there's a problem after the install? I'm sure you would. Well, great. Let's get you an install date. You got to get in the habit of asking. Ask for the damn order. By the way, the same thing goes for CSRs. When you're asking for the order as a CSR, you're asking the homeowner to schedule a service call or a sales call. You have to specifically ask. You have to say, hey, let's go ahead and get you set for Thursday at 2 o'clock. How does that sound, right? So you got to ask for the order. Don't let the entire value of the relationship that you built with your homeowner go to waste when you just kind of fizzle out at the end. You got to be strong. You got to have a spine. You got to stand tall, and you got to ask for the damn order. I guarantee you do that, and you'll see your numbers improve, and it will happen very, very quickly. So again, I do a 20 to 30-minute training every Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is a short video like that. Goes right to the phone of everybody in your company. I've noticed many of you have asked for the scripts. We'll have Neil reach out and send those to you and have that conversation. But I'm telling you, this daily stuff and the weekly stuff is really, really important. And then lastly, I do a monthly virtual mastermind group. We get together with everybody in our program, and we share ideas back and forth. We role play. You can ask me questions. So it's a chance with your technicians, your salespeople, really anybody in your company to come in, ask me questions, and we just kick it for an hour or so, and we learn from each other. So now the question you're probably asking yourself is, how the hell am I going to find time to do all this, right? Well, that's a good question, and it's a real question. What I can tell you is that if you can find the time, then power to you. The reality is, if we're in the slow season, maybe there's time to do it. If you don't have time to do it, we can do it for you for about the cost of selling one system for the entire year. We do the entire implementation. We train the people on the scripts, the outbound scripts. We train your CSRs, your lead coordinators, your service technicians, your salespeople. We build your sales system. We build your price cards. They get the daily trainings from me, the monthly, the weekly trainings. We do everything for you. So, and it's super, super affordable. I will tell you that, and by the way, I'm going to take some questions here in just a moment. We have a little more time. I will tell you that the beautiful part about the way we're doing this now, I used to do it out there on the road, traveling those 200,000 miles a year, but my daily fee was $10,000 per day. And clients had to buy at least 5 days a month. So it was really expensive to have me come and do this in your company. Now we can do it through the virtual platform. Everybody got used to this in COVID. So I simply have another question here. If you would love to learn more about how we can teach you to thrive in the shoulder season and implement this system for about the revenue of selling one system a year. So I guess the question is, do you think I can help you sell one more system a year by implementing this process in your company? Because if you can sell one more system a year, that'll pretty much pay for the program, right? Super affordable. And we've got the whole thing streamlined. You'll meet with Krista, you'll meet with Neil, you'll meet with me. We'll get this thing implemented, and it's showtime. And it works. It's been working for 20 years in my companies. It's been working in my client companies, and it just works, right? The reality is any process, any system will probably work if you just do it. But what I do here is I am going to be sure and implement it for you. We're going to drive it. We're not a situation where we give you a bunch of content and say, good luck. We guide you through the entire process. It takes about 60 to 90 days to implement the entire program, but you're in it for the whole year, right? So that means you get the daily trainings and all that stuff as well. So if you're interested, I can see we have many of you that are. Just click the button there, hell yes or yes. Pretty good options in my estimation. And while you're doing that, what I want to do is to open up for some questions. And you can submit questions to the chat bar. There's also a hand-raising feature. I see that Corbin Miller has raised his or her hand. Corbin, I'm not sure. It sounds like a male, but it could be a woman. So I think we'll probably unmute you there, Corbin, if you just sit tight for a second. And you can submit your questions through the chat bar. And Krista will kind of review those. Yep. Or Neil will review those and read them to me, because I'm dead in the water. Once this poll thing goes up, man, my system just goes like, we can't do anything. So
I unmuted Corbin, so he is able to chat.
Corbin, what do you got? You should be unmuted.
Yeah.
Speak to me.
Gotcha. Do I got you?
There you go. Now I hear you.
Hey, well, no, I'm getting ready to come down to your class November, Texas on
EGIA.
Okay.
Yeah,
EGIA. How to
good.
become the best salesperson. Looking forward to coming down to that. And I just didn't know if you had anything for me beforehand on what I needed to do to prepare.
Great question. Great question. I would say the main thing is to really come with an open mind. When we go through the mindset portion of that training, I believe that's an event that Drew and I are doing, right, Krista?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
Okay.
boot camp, the 3-day boot camp.
Yeah, 3-day boot camp. So Drew and I would be down there. I believe Russ is coming down.
Yep.
Horrocks will be coming down with us as well. And I'll be spending the first half of the first day really going into detail in the mindset. And I think it's just a matter of going in with an open mind that, you know, that there's other ways of thinking about things. I'm willing to change my mindset. I'm willing to change my thought patterns, because that's really what it's about, right? We have these thoughts running down the neural pathways in our brain, and we gotta change those thoughts, right? Einstein said you cannot change a problem or fix a problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. So if our current performance is not satisfactory to us, our current thinking is not going to change it. Our current thinking is what created the current performance. So I'll be talking to you a lot about how to change that thinking. I say just come with an open mind. Honestly, the energy in your voice, I can just tell you're positive and you're coming in to learn. You're coming in to just crush it. So I think you're going to be fine. Just come in with that open mind, buddy.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thanks, Weldon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Any other questions, Krista?
Yes, we have a question from Kevin. How do you add a duct renovation on your cards?
Yeah. So we have a separate book that we build for our clients. We build an accessory book, and basically we have a price per footage for the main trunk, and then a price for each run, depending on the length of them. And basically it allows our guys, obviously on the basic system, they got the price right there. Within a matter of literally of seconds, they can design a duct system. Again, we're estimating the cost of goods and that type of thing. Some jobs may come in a little better, some a little worse, but on average it works for you. The key is you have to be able to present, you know, it's that old saying, you got to brand while the iron's hot, right? They're emotionally connected to you. They're emotionally connected to everything you've talked about during the sales process. And you know, we got to get to them right then. So yeah, you can do it yourself. You just kind of estimate, you know, maybe it's X amount of dollars per every 10 feet on the main trunk, and then X amount of dollars per run. If you're replacing the vents, you know, you can just kind of put it all together. We can help you with that. We do it all the time. In our accessory book, we also go through all your accessories, indoor air quality. If you do electrical, all those other things, we want to be able to put a package together very, very quickly. One of the worst things that we can do is connect with that homeowner, build that relationship, build that connection, and then go out to our van, or God forbid, go back to the shop and put a price together, because you're never getting back in the house. They're going to say, just email it to me. And that is not going to be a good opportunity for you. So NASDAQ, long time no see.
I know. I was going to just read a quick.
Okay.
Billy said, where can I find the short daily videos? Do you want to offer the 2-week free trial? And
sure. If you go to the website, weldonlong.com, it'll pop up when you first get to the website, and you just put your information in there, and it'll start. You get 2 weeks for free, and you can decide if you want to do it long term. If that doesn't work, everybody that Neil's going to follow up with in these scripts, we'll offer it everybody too. So if you're on that list, you'll be contacted about that. We'll make sure you get it, but you can go to the website and sign up for it.
Yep. And then NASDAQ, what steps would you suggest on changing culture of a new construction HVAC company to a successful service and replacement?
The best way to change culture in a new construction company is to burn it down. So I know NASDAQ, I'm just kidding. I kid. You know, really, you got to lead by example. You got to lead by example. People have to see it. You got to preach it every single day. There's got to be consistency. That's what these daily videos, because I'm preaching that prosperity mindset every single day, in addition to the sales content. But it really is just consistency, making sure you're teaching it every single week, and that you're walking the talk, right? I think it was Emerson that said, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. So you got to walk the talk. I think that's a really important part of the process.
Zach said, great session. Billy also said, I see you sell down. Me too. Easier to sell down than up, but you showed right to left. Do you do left to right?
Yeah, it's funny. If people have asked that, I don't think it makes a difference. I always go, when I turn it around, I'm starting on my left, and it's going to be my high-end system. If you prefer to flip it, obviously, when we do the artwork, we can flip it, or you can flip it. I've heard debates going both ways. I personally have not been able to see any difference. What matters is that I'm asking for the order on that high-end system. A lot of times what guys will do, because they're kind of embarrassed about the price, or the price scares them, they'll say, nobody buys these two, right? And then they start with their third system. Well, you just lost the benefit of getting the first 2 no's, right? So the key thing is to make sure and ask for the order on every system, including the high-end stuff.
Victor said, where do the majority of your leads come from for your HVAC company, social media, coupons, radio, etc.?
Yeah, they come from all over the place. We do some big box stores. We do a lot of outbounding. We do a lot of home shows. Home shows are the most overlooked opportunity. We set 25 to 30 set appointments, replacement opportunities on every home show. We do about 10 of them a year. And by the way, they all come in the shoulder season, which is when we need them the most. Trucks, we do some direct mail. We do Angie's. Everybody hates Angie's. The key to being Angie's, you got to have stone cold sales professionals, and you got to be speed to lead. In my company, if an Angie's list comes in, a lead, we respond within 60 seconds. That's the key. Speed to lead, speed to lead, speed to lead. So we get it from all over the place, right? And I think the key is you can't look at it as like, well, oh, that's only, 100 leads a year from that source. I'm getting every little lead I can, right? From every source that I can. When we do an installation, we're clover leafing the 2 houses next door, the ones across the street with a door hanger. We're going to be in your neighborhood. Let us know if you need something. Just everywhere we can. We do a ton of Facebook leads. I got a guy that does Facebook leads for us. We're pulling leads from everywhere we can. We must have 30 different lead sources. So it's not any just one. It's trying to get them from as many possibilities, many places as possible. And it's different in every market. What works in my market may or may not work in yours.
Melissa said, how do you overcome just email the proposal when you aren't able to close the deal at the kitchen table?
It's funny because my main objective when I walk in the house is to get the homeowner to make a final decision, yes or no. And I tell them no is a perfectly acceptable answer. What I'm trying to do is to reach a conclusion while I'm sitting in front of them. In most cases, if I'm going to sell them, they're going to get to a yes while I'm sitting there. If they refuse to make a decision while I'm sitting there, it's probably going to be a no. In fact, I've had situations where people will say, well, no, we got to think about it some more. And I say, well, earlier you said you could let me know today. Are you just looking for a polite way to say no? Because that's okay. And they'll say, oh, well, I'm not saying no. Oh, well, great. Let's do the paperwork. No, I'm not saying yes. In my mind, if you ain't saying yes, you're saying no. So that's all part of the whole training system that we teach, how to deal with that situation. But ideally, I'm trying to get to a yes or no on the initial call. There are times where we have a follow-up. There are appropriate situations. If you've got a one-legger, for example, and they tell you, I can't make a decision today, well, we don't present the options. We don't present the numbers. If they tell me up front they can't make a decision, it's called the intention statement. It's a very important part of the sales process. So it's a pretty complex question, really, probably more so than it seems, but it's all part of our overall. What I will say is that if you can't get them to a final decision today, they're probably looking for a polite way to say no. People don't want to say no to your face. They want to say no by ignoring your phone calls and emails.
Sandy, you kind of just covered this, but maybe she wasn't on, but what is your number one lead source in the fall? So maybe
well, I will say that now in the fall, that's a little more specific. Yeah. Our number one lead source right now is outbounding. We are outbounding like mad dogs. We're setting 30 to 40 maintenance calls a day because we're outbounding to our database. Outbounding, right? That's what drives it all. Because listen, depending on where you are in the country right now in Colorado, it's 70 degrees out there, 68 degrees. Ain't nobody calling in for HVAC today, but we're calling for HVAC today. We're leaving voicemails by the dozens. It's time for your fall tune-up. We're doing a special, and we just offer some promotion and we get them to call us back. You got to leave the right message, and you have to have some enthusiasm in your voice. Again, that's part of the program we teach. There's enthusiasm. There's the right message, the right promotion. It has to be handled just properly. If we just call and say, hey, time for your tune-up, call me, they're probably not going to call back.
Awesome. That's it.
Okay. Hey, listen, everybody, I appreciate it. Most of everybody stayed on to the bitter end. I appreciate that. Listen, if we can be help in any shape, way, or form, let us know. If you requested some of these other items that we were talking about, someone will be in touch. Neil will be in touch, or Andrew will be in touch and get those to you. We want to thank everybody for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. Appreciate the attention. And everybody get out there, kick some ass, take some names. Have a great rest of your week, and we shall see you soon. Until then, my friends, bye-bye for now.